My name is Becky Clark. I am the spiritual director, director of adult spiritual formation here at Trinity United Methodist Church, have been for 8 years. Before that, I was the associate director at the Louisiana Tech Wesley Foundation. And so I have been doing full-time ministry for about 20 years at this point.
Great. And if at any time that you feel like you want to do a redo
Stop and redo. I
stuff,
figure you can cut and paste me and chop me up. We have a media
yeah,
guy, and he cuts and chops and pastes and
yeah. No, that's definitely what we're gonna do
makes
for
me
the
look
video.
better.
Yeah. It's us editing people. It's what we do. So tell us about your call to ministry and your journey to ordination.
When I was in high school is when I really felt called by the Lord. I'm very blessed to feel like I had an actual call experience the summer after my freshman year in high school. My plan was to be an elementary school teacher. I went to college with that plan. I was going to graduate in 4 years and be a teacher. That was the plan. But as you tell God your plan, God changes your plan. So my senior year in college, I'd been very involved in college ministry. I'd been growing just a deep love for the Lord. And I decided to spend a year after I graduated from college in college ministry. So I moved to Texas Tech Wesley Foundation. From Louisiana Tech Wesley, I moved to Texas Tech. And I served for a year as a campus minister, an intern as a campus minister. And that's really where God called me to ministry. It's where I fell in love with conversations about God. I fell in love with just the challenge of where is God in your life. I loved college students, and that's the time where people are asking the most questions. And so I felt that tug and that pull. God kind of said, this is what you're going to do. Instead of teaching second graders, you're going to teach whoever will listen about Jesus. And so I went to seminary after that because I felt like I knew nothing about the Bible and really nothing about ministry to be able to do it right. So I went to Asbury Seminary and stayed there for 2 years. And when I was at Louisiana Tech, I was involved at the Louisiana Tech Wesley Foundation. So I knew a guy named Scott Wright, and he was looking for an associate director kind of towards the end of my second year in seminary. And so I thought, I want to come back to my alma mater. I want to work with Scott Wright. So I sent him an email and said, when do I start? When would you like me to get to Ruston and start my job there with you as the associate director? And a few months later, he hired me and I moved. And I spent 10 years at the Louisiana Tech Wesley Foundation and loved every moment, the challenge of talking about scripture, the challenge of seeing God in the day-to-day, the challenge of people asking difficult questions about their faith. And I loved every moment of it. I feel like that's exactly what I was supposed to do, even though I thought for so long that I was going to teach kids math and English and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how God shifts your focus if you just continue to walk with him. And I've also learned that when you tell God, this is what you're going to do, God says, well, that's really nice, but let me take you on this other journey, and we'll walk together, and I'll ease you into the real call that I have for you. But that's how I ended up here. And I never planned to do ordination. I have an MDiv, and I worked at Wesley for 10 years, and then I came to work at Trinity. And somewhere along the way, God just tugged that there was the next step, and that ordination was where I needed to head. And so I have learned that you just don't argue with God. You do what he says, and you go on the journey. You learn about yourself, you learn about him. And so I said yes, and here we are at this point. The story that I'll never forget was we went to the Holy Land a few years ago with some of our church, and being with this group of people that I worship with on a regular basis, but being in the Holy Land and experiencing the Bible with this group of people that stand shoulder to shoulder with me on regular Sundays and declare who he is. We were walking down from the Mount of Olives down to the Garden of Gethsemane, and we were listening to worship music. And we get to the garden, and I had pulled my little Bible out, and I started reading the scripture of when Jesus goes to the garden and prays, and we're all standing around together looking at these trees in the garden in this place, reading the scripture of what God has done, and the the love that his son has for us, and we're all weeping together, right? We're weeping as this is happening. And I'll just never forget, because it sealed us as a group together the way that nothing else could. And now that we're back in the States and we're back worshiping shoulder to shoulder together, we have this connection that can never be changed and never be repeated, of that moment where we stood together and kind of felt everything that that we did about what God has done for us. So it's not necessarily a funny story, but it is by far one of the most pivotal stories that I've had in the last few years of being able to do ministry and have the privilege to walk the journey with the people that God has put in my place. Now, I will tell you a funny story, and you can use this if you want. But we do lots of podcast and video announcements here at Trinity. And I'm very extroverted, so I'm not worried about standing in front of people or a camera and talking. I can do it. And typically, if anything is going to embarrass me, I'm the one that's done it to myself. I embarrass myself. I do stupid things and embarrass myself all the time. We're in the studio one day a few years ago, about to record for announcements, and we use a teleprompter. And so our intern was setting the teleprompter up, and I was backing up to kind of make sure I could see it, and the camera was going to get me. And the next thing I knew, my shoe hit, and my body just went completely up. My feet went straight up like this, and I fell flat, completely flat on my back, and probably laid there for 5 minutes and just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And the intern laughed, our media director laughed. I really don't know if we filmed the announcements after that, because we couldn't get ourselves together. And we mourned the fact that we had not turned the camera on yet, because we really wanted to have caught me completely falling and kind of just anyway. That's probably one of the funniest things that's happened to me in the last few years in ministry. But that's just kind of that's what happens. That's what happens when you do media. It's what happens when you do ministry. You fall and things happen. I am extremely thankful for my church family. Trinity United Methodist Church has been here from the very beginning of when I started this journey in full-time ministry. They voted for me to go through this process. They have been beyond helpful and open and excited for me. This is a community that I know is my family. And so I'm really thankful for the community of Trinity United Methodist Church. I'm also thankful for Scott Wright, who said yes to my first full-time job in ministry when I told him he had to say yes. So he actually did say yes. So and 10 years of learning from him and growing in ministry has been significant for me. And then I'm thankful for my husband Todd, who has been on this journey. I knew the call to ministry before he and I met, and he stepped into it, and he has been so supportive when I say, I believe that God is calling me to this. I believe that God is calling us to this. And he says, then let's do it. Let's follow God. Let's do what God says. And he's read papers, and he has edited, and he has taken care of the kids when I have had to be away. So I am beyond grateful for my awesome husband.